so high. Something I don't think either of us have done before.
Interesting that John and I think we're tracking to just right out of the gate here. Again, first of all, my name is David Miller. I'm Vice President for Public Policy at Citizens for Community Values. We serve as the Family Policy Council for Focus on the Family in Ohio, so we work very closely with them. And I stand today with my colleagues in opposing Issue 3 and the plan to expand gambling in Ohio. You know, for the third time in 3 years, we had we had 2006, 2008, now 2009. Voters are being faced with what I call the perversion of our initiative process in Ohio. The initiative and referendum process is, I think, a good thing as a check and balance system for voters when they don't see that their elected representatives are serving them rightfully. So it is there for a good purpose, but I think this is a perversion of the process for the benefit of a single industry that is seeking to create a protected monopoly in Ohio's Constitution. I think it's a reckless pursuit of bad public policy by an industry that carries an alarming and very costly product liability. Distinguished Professor John Kindt, I do consider it a privilege to be here with him, again, having read his materials and to hear from him. He's been studying the effects of gambling the last 20 years. His recently released volumes here have a sobering warning for Ohio voters. This is what he said. Casinos siphon money away from economies struggling to rebound. Think Ohio's not there? And saddle taxpayers with hefty, ongoing costs to battle crime and other social problems that gambling spawns. One of Professor Kindt's more startling conclusions comes from the cost-benefit analysis. He talked about siphoning away $3 for every $1 of theoretical benefits. You know, if Ohioans truly want economic vitality to return to our state, this is not the road that we need to be going down. An expansion of gambling is not the solution. You know, although a fortunate majority of gamblers can walk into a casino, they can pull a slot machine, they can play the lottery, and they can walk away without any lasting effects. They're very fortunate. You know, but the reality is a certain percentage cannot. And somewhere around that 3 to 5% range who visit a casino will develop an addiction at a problem or pathological level. And I think it's sobering to realize this, that 30 to 50% of the casino's revenue come from that very small percentage. Something I say is wrong with this picture. The cost of addiction in increase in crime by those that are addicted, trying to meet their habits, fulfill those gambling addictions, the bankruptcies, the destruction of families, the domestic violence, the suicide, are not only costly to the state, because again, we're talking $3 for every $1 that we benefit from. They are far more costly to those who are suffering from this industry. And I think we should care more, and that's where CCV's concern really is. Our heart is going out to these people who are suffering, what will be caused if Issue 3 passes. We ought to be more concerned about them than the jobs or the taxes that proponents claim they'll bring. Mr. Kindt mentioned Earl Granoll's. He illustrates it this way, and I think it gives a very good perspective. Imagine that there is a newly developed drug to solve certain medical problems. Other drugs exist for the same problem, and the new drug's use is successful for most people. It seems to serve the purpose well, but as time passes, experience reveals that for 1 to 2% of the users, the drug has devastatingly harmful consequences. For another 2 to 3% of users, it has just harmful consequences. The company wants continued licensing, and the state is considering complying if the promoter will share the profits. Sound familiar? It's an all too common scenario with the predators in the gambling industry. Let's compare this to another product liability issue that we saw in the news recently. Recent experience in the case of Vioxx. Everybody remembers Vioxx, Bextra. There were a couple of drugs. The experience with Vioxx was this. Less than 3/1000ths of 1% of the users were found to suffer harmful cardiac events as a result of taking Vioxx. And what did Merck do? They did the responsible thing. They pulled it off the market in 2004, I believe. The reality is that we have far more people harmed from legalized gambling than 3/1000ths of 1%. We're talking 3 and 5% that have very serious, devastating issues. With a product liability in the range of 5%, we instead have an industry seeking to change our state constitution to give themselves a protected monopoly, all the while failing to provide the voters with full disclosure of the real cost taxpayers will eventually pay for the addictions created in their casinos. Urge a no vote. We are working with a number of like-minded individuals and organizations across the state, within the faith community, around the country, who stand unified in opposing Issue 3. I think what I have seen successful in past campaigns is a micro-targeting of individuals within that faith community. And I think there are a number of ways that we're addressing that. One of the largest is going to come from Focus on the Family. John mentioned this book. Dr. James Dobson was a member of that gambling commission 10 years ago. Dr. James Dobson from Focus is committed to opposing the expansion of gambling across our country, and certainly in Ohio they have committed significant resources toward this. They are on, I believe, their radio broadcast is syndicated 133 different times, 5 days a week in Ohio alone. I think he's probably the second or third, fourth largest syndicated radio show in the country. Ohio, we're talking, I think, pretty significantly here. We're working with them to broadcast commercials, public service announcements, and special broadcasts that are going to be addressing Issue 3 during the month that are leading up to the election. Focus is also going to be doing special mailings by snail mail, email, every opportunity that they have. Another very significant organization will be the American Family Association. We have a very good relationship with them, and I think they'll also play a vital role in educating and activating voters. They have a number of radio stations, as well as, I think, probably one of the largest email databases in Ohio of people who are active. They want to do something. They said, you tell me what to do and we'll take action. And so I think we'll see significant opposition from them. One final element of the campaign I'll mention is the ability of numerous organizations that we're working with to reach the faith community directly in the pews through nonpartisan educational voter guides. And we're going to be distributing those throughout the state, throughout this month, and leading up to the election. I believe that this year will be no different, and I think we'll see the faith community turn out, and I expect to win the vote on Issue 3.